I've always found Slaanesh's lack of anti-large AP to be a little bit surprising. I mean, yes, a lot of their units just do high enough raw damage. They can certainly burst through many large armored targets. However, something like this big old Mammoth here, Wulfric on the Mammoth, of course. This replay from Highland Archer is a lot to deal with. I mean, 14,000 HP with 70 armor. Not the craziest amount of armor. Certainly is low enough that just high overall damage units can get the work done against him, but Slaanesh's just general lack of missiles is an issue. The fact that they don't have any anti-large AP units really besides the Soul Grinder is an issue, especially because, you know, large monsters tend not to be that great against Norsca. They are themed around monster hunting and definitely have the tools to deal with something like the Soul Grinder. But let's take a look at the tools these players have brought in this particular battle. We've got Wulfric, of course, a Famir of Shadows with Pit of Shades and Enfeebling Foe. We've got plenty of Berserkers in the front line, 4 units, including the Brutes of the Hound, and then some Skin Wolves, again with armor. A little bit of extra armor definitely helps in this matchup, and the physical resistance is nice unless you're going up against demonic units, which I don't totally hate here for Slaanesh. But of course, that regeneration, Slaanesh also lacking fire damage, means that this is a pretty safe trait to take and will definitely help you like push through attrition fights against Slaanesh, certainly. I've got some javelins also in the back, and then over here, this unit of Skin Wolves and the Miststalkers, Regiment Renowned Famir, are getting a little bit eaten up by a couple of Hellstriders and Knights of Slaanesh. Yeah, 3 Hellstriders, 1 unit of Knights, it looks like. Something like that. 2 units of Hellstriders, there we go. We've also got plenty of warriors, including the Mirror Guard in the center, Hellscourge warriors, and then some more Hellstriders over here, and the Chaos Knights of Slaanesh. I actually really like the pick of the Hellscourge warriors here in particular. A lot of Norscan units rely on high charge, including their infantry. 36 charge bonus is a great charge for infantry. Since they have so many models, it really helps them hit very hard. But of course, this expert charge defense of these Slaanesh Hellscourge warriors does mean that they won't get their charge bonus at all, and it will be a relatively ineffective engagement, especially with a nice counter charge from the Slaanesh Knights into one of these units here. Meanwhile, Wulfric just stomping straight onto the Mirror Guard in the center is definitely smart. The Mirror Guard's magic attacks will help them cut through the rage, physical resistance once that starts to build up for these Norscan units. Over on the far side, Skin Wolves definitely outclassed. The armor does help them significantly against the Hellstriders, but here you can see still taking quite a bit of damage, but definitely that armor and regeneration helping them win decisively. Meanwhile, over on the far side, the Miststalkers and this other unit of Skin Wolves are holding out. They've managed to beat down, it looks like, one of the 2 units of Hellstriders that probably fled immediately off the map. The second one is likely also, depending on the angle it takes here, likely to go straight off the side of the map as well, which just leaves the Slaanesh Knights. And certainly the Famir with their magic damage and armor piercing should fight okay. Wow, they are like significantly smaller than the Knights, which is crazy. Armor Sundering also synergizes with the non-AP damage of the Skin Wolves that they're fighting alongside, but of course with Azazel in here, his elite status, magical high damage, will be able to just punch down the Skin Wolves no problem. He definitely carries significant AP and is one of the Slaanesh's best kind of AP tools in this particular build. One of really their only AP tools, but Skin Wolves continuing to hold out. Hellstriders looking like they're trying to get into a rear charge position, but this infantry fight is going pretty badly for Norsca. This is why you bring the Hellscourge Marauders here. You can see that the Berserkers really just, even with, you know, kind of clean-ish 1v1 engagements, they are doing quite badly. Finally, the Tactical Reserve Javelins are going to be deployed here. It looks like against the Chaos Knights. Is their armor sundered ever so slightly? Yep, down to 90 armor, which is still significant, but it does help those high damage javelins just do that much extra high damage. Certainly Famir armor sundering quite useful in a number of circumstances. And yeah, these Miststalkers, although they're probably not doing that much damage themselves, the support value is decent. But at the same time, I mean, these poor javelins, it's only going to be a matter of time before the Slaanesh Knights actually collapse onto them. Skin Wolves can't hold back the entire unit here. Saw a Pit of Shades going off there somewhere. Looks like it's hitting the front line. Another Lore of Boats here as well. Might have been the first one. I didn't catch if he had casted any others. I think now you can actually look to see how many charges they have left. Yeah, 1 charge left. So Lure of Boats, of course, going to be a great way to deal AoE magic damage, armor piercing. The Pit of Shades as well. Not as efficient as it used to be, and I actually think Lure of Shadows wise, it'd probably be more magic efficient. I don't know. It depends on how many units you're hitting, but obviously hindsight 2020 against a more elite, kind of focused Slaanesh build like this, Melkos Mystifying Miasma probably be more effective and reliable, especially helping to kind of control these Chaos Knights a little bit. You know, help the Skin Wolves be able to outmaneuver them, maybe pull away due to the speed debuff, right? They can potentially pull away. The Skin Wolves heal up, charge back in, and just generally kind of control the movements of these Knights and other units. But Javelins do manage to get back with the Skin Wolves holding the line. Here comes the big Mammoth as well, running trunk into Azazel. Tusk's out. And although I'm sure Azazel appreciates the shape of the Tusk in certain ways, definitely not the best to just get pounded in the face by it. We're going to see another Pit of Shades unleashed here as well, hitting those Chaos Knights, doing a decent amount of damage to them, maybe staggering some of their models. Looks like a lot of the models that got staggered in there are just dying outright, which is totally fine. But looking like Norsca is pretty grim here. I mean, the situation for them, besides Wulfric and the Famir here, is looking pretty grim. We've got tons of warriors still left, of course. Wulfric, armor-piercing, anti-infantry damage. Definitely can just wreck the warriors over time. But let's see what he can do. The key here is he needs to be able to defeat these warriors while not getting cycle charged to death by Azazel. Azazel, of course, does have devastating flanker, so he's going to double that 45 charge bonus up to 90 if he hits in the side or rear of Wulfric as he's cycle charging. Here, this is also potentially very bad. The Famir gets caught out away from any support, and although the Famir does magic damage, his combat stats are not nearly enough of a match for Azazel here. Enfeebling Foe going to try and even that out, but even after that, Azazel still just has straight up better stats than the poor Famir bro. Some Skin Wolves are going to try and come support here. Skin Wolves in general, I mean, if they're able to hold their leadership, will do well. That high anti-large just damage overall. I guess Azazel does count as infantry, right? Yes, he does. So anti-large damage won't actually apply against him. Might not be that great at getting hits unless they're able to get a full surround and circle beat. Certainly with the Hellscourge warriors pushing through, it's enough to terrify them away. Lure of Boats, also an absolute terror for these Slaanesh infantry, is going to wreck them. And again, the lack of anti-large AP for Slaanesh could come back to haunt them. We're going to fast forward a little bit through this cleanup phase as Azazel finishes off the Famir and Wulfric tries to chase off the warriors. Wulfric does have to be a little bit careful here about engaging in the woods. Because Azazel does count as infantry size, he counts as a small entity, he's not going to be debuffed by the forest, unlike Wulfric, who will suffer some debuffs in melee combat while fighting in the forest. He does have his one Brute of the Hound here, though, so there's that. Just literally the one absolute Chad Norsca bro with 7 HP. Full charge into a unit of warriors, and he gets whipped to death immediately. There you go. Oh, but there's Wulfric. Coming to try and save the day. A little bit late. I'm going to pound it on in here. But again, it's going to be Azazel cycle charging as best he can. He does get a rear charge technically there. But Wulfric, you can see, is pulling out of the forest if he can. This is a very smart thing to do. Not take this engagement here where Wulfric is at a significant disadvantage. Because, of course, Vigor does debuff armor when units are exhausted. A lot of people don't realize this, but seeing how Wulfric here is exhausted, his armor, I don't remember exactly the percentage, but it is a percentage-based armor debuff. Pretty significant. The Hellscourges don't have the most damage in the world, but they still will get some damage over time, especially with Acquiescence debuffing melee defense. They're going to be able to get pretty consistent hits. Azazel himself, of course, having some issues with his landing animation. Just can't believe it's still a bug in the game, but yes, here we are, 2023. He's going to fail to land there and get back up into the air, but honestly, I don't know if he really should land unless it's like a really safe scenario. He does finally get an attack animation landed there. Nope. Nope, still not. Still just failing to land. There we go. Finally lands in the front of Wulfric, immediately within hit range of him. So he's going to need to, yeah, get back away, get back up in the air. And we'll fast forward as this does go on for some time. Azazel's landing bug animation, though, is going to play a factor here in that he's actually not able to get that great of charges against Wulfric. Wulfric, of course, also has his own personal debuff, Hunter of Champions, which, yes, has gone off a couple times here, but still has unlimited charges, of course, so as long as it's off of cooldown, he can use that to great effect and kind of force Azazel away. But let's see here. It's going to be very, very close. Acquiescence getting casted here. Azazel just stays in combat. Very risky to do because although he does get a few hits and gets super close to finishing off Wulfric, he gets himself killed. Now, can Wulfric beat? Yes, he does. Just barely routes away before he himself routes those Hell Scourges. And the Mammoth carry, I mean, I'm not going to say it's completely unexpected. It was a very close battle at the end of the day. Certainly, Slaanesh player had a chance to win, but that Mammoth is so much to deal with for Slaanesh, and it's definitely something to keep in mind, you know, as you guys try and move through this matchup for Norsca or for Slaanesh. Mammoths are very strong. Wulfric with Lore of Boats and everything else is one of the strongest monster lords in the game that's not a caster lord, and just very, very, very strong. 27,000 damage dealt, almost 4,000, yeah, 3,869 value, very nice. Miststalkers and the one Skin Wolf, despite getting caught in a pretty unfavorable position, were still able to punch very effectively. I love both of these units to trade against Hellstriders. I mean, only, yeah, I mean, I guess the Hellstriders still end up doing okay in some circumstances. But tactically, I mean, they weren't able to really beat the Skin Wolves, which is what their role is, right? To be mobile anti-large. Obviously, we all saw the hard counter of the Hellscourge warriors against these poor Marauder Berserkers, which is very interesting to see. And then the Marauder Hunters get just enough to pay for themselves. And have some pretty nice volleys against some of those Slaanesh Knights as well, who themselves have a little bit of a mixed bag. One of them does pay for themselves, one of them does not. Azazel himself gets some pretty good value back as well, but yeah, it ends up being super, super close. I think for Slaanesh's side, I have to go back and recheck kind of some of the spell usage and placements. I actually didn't check to see. I'm assuming Azazel was just spamming the Whip and Acquiescence to get map-wide melee attack buffs, but in general, yeah, it's hard to say. I think taking that risky Vanguard on the side, maybe he expected to be able to win that fight, but actually ended up losing one Hellstrider who got basically no value, which is pretty significant. I don't know if that was enough to tip the scales of the entire battle, but it was very close, so I'm sure there was a dozen things you could point to that could have potentially tipped the scales. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.